welcome to the Chuck Shoot Podcast, and thank you for checking out this little show of mine. If you're a first-time listener, I'm sure you're not here for me. You're probably here for the man, the legend himself, Dave Ellefson from Megadeth. Not only one of the biggest metal bands ever, but I would even say maybe one of the biggest rock bands ever. Megadeth sold over 38 million records worldwide. Dave is obviously most well known for being the bass player with Megadeth, but he does have a lot of other projects going on, at least 3 of which involve my second guest, Mr. Drew Fortier, who was the guitarist in Bang Tango. And I have to say, I've been doing this podcast for about 17 months, and I think Drew is probably the kindest, most selfless guest I've ever had the pleasure of having on my show. Maybe one of the nicest people I've just ever met in my whole life. And so Drew and Dave, they have a new book that comes out on December 18th. It's called Star Hitman. And they also have a found footage horror movie coming out called Dwellers, and also an album coming out with my past guests, Vinnie Dombroski from Sponge and Mike Heller from Fear Factory. That project is called Lucid, and that should be coming out soon as well. So we're going to get to all these projects. We're going to talk about Megadeth, Bang Tango, and so much more. Lots of great stuff here. Make sure to check it out. Enjoy. Welcome, Drew Fortier, to the Chuck Shoot Podcast. So tell me about how you got into music. I think because you're younger, and you're listening to like older kind of bands like Bang Tango and stuff like that. You got into it because of your older brother, who's 11 years older. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. Yeah, my older brother, George. And growing up, I got an older sister too, Diane. She's 7 years older. And I just remember I was born in 87, so like early 90s, they always had Headbangers Ball on MTV.
Yes.
So I kind of pretty much Ricky Rackman was like my babysitter, and so
every Saturday
videos, Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The Bang Tango. They used to tape it too, so I used to watch other reruns. And I was just like, I just had no choice but to like it because, that's what they watched.
Yeah. You grew up with that music, and then eventually you ended up going to a Bang Tango concert. And tell me the story how you met the singer. You had a camera in your hand. Were you just recording for fun, or were you recording for the venue? But you had a camera in your hand, and the singer came up to you, and I'll let you tell the rest of the story.
Yeah. It was a place I was bartending at south side of Chicago called Mike's Love and Music. And it was on my off day. And prior to that, my boss was like, hey, we're going to have Bang Tango play here. I was like, I remember Bang Tango.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, he's like, you should bring a camera, shoot some video and all that. We could, promote the venue and everything and all that. I was like, yeah, cool. So, and I remember Joe from Beautiful Creatures.
Sure.
And I was a big fan of that band too. And
you cut out.
And so I'm just by the door, all timid. I was in my early 20s. And still kind of shy. And then he saw me, I had long hair, and he just kind of saunters over, and he's like, my Joe Listay impression. Hey, man, you look cool. I can find some weed. I was like, no, man, I don't. Sorry. What's that in your hand? And it was a camera. I was like, oh, it's called a camera. And he was like, whoa, we're recording an album in Chicago in 2 weeks. You should come out and do like a studio documentary. And that's how I ended up here. So everything unfolded from there. And it started off as like a studio documentary for their album Pistol Whipped in the Bible Belt.
And didn't you play on that album as well? Yeah.
Yeah. I played a little bit on the song Live Life, and I do like backing vocals on a song called Boombox Seance.
Did you play guitar before doing that? You played guitar before this? Or did you just learn for that album?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I played guitar since I was like 12 or 13.
Okay.
So something like that. But this was probably like 5 years before I joined the band.
Sure.
But yeah, I was in the studio every single day, and ironically, it was at Johnny K's Groove Masters in Chicago, and big studio. And upstairs from where we were, Johnny K was mixing the then new Megadeth album, 13.
Oh.
So all these years later, here I am with Dave doing all this stuff. Yeah.
But you didn't see him at that time, right? You wouldn't meet him till later, right?
Oh yeah.
Right.
Many years later, but it was thinking about it now, it was kind of cool.
Yeah. So
then go No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so you ended up doing this documentary kind of without having like a lot of training or had never done anything like that before, but they let you do it and they kind of gave you free reign to do it how you wanted to do it. And it ended up really well, actually. I watched it a few years ago when it came out on YouTube. Attack of Life is the name. There's like some good guest spots in it. Dee Snider's in it, and some other Ricky Rackman's, I believe, is in as well. Now, what is the stuff though that is there anything that was on the cutting room floor that you couldn't put in the movie that you could maybe you could talk about it now? You know, it's been a few years. Like nobody cares about it now. Is there any dirt or crazy wild times that you couldn't show?
Absolutely. So much.
So much. So give me something. Give me one thing that was like, well, I couldn't put this in, but or you don't have to say names if that makes it easier to tell the story.
Okay. I'll throw some random words out there.
Okay.
Bang Tango.
Okay. The band.
Recording of the first album. First night at the studio. College Town. Young females.
Okay. I'm with you so far.
Battles.
Ping pong.
Broken plate glass window.
Oh boy.
And this is a story that Howard Benson told that I had to take out.
Oh really?
And, yeah, it's
because it was incriminating, or was it just too crude? Or
it was it's nothing that wasn't probably shown in the dirt, you know. But
yeah,
but where it sat in the movie, it was way early on.
Okay.
And it just came off. It's like with it being that early on to learn about that stuff, you really ended up like not liking the original band that much off the bat. So it was better to leave it out altogether.
Sure. And times were different in the 80s. You know, I'm sure this was all, I hope it was all consensual and stuff, but you know, it's kind of like, it was a different time back then. People were a little more free and loose and.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And everybody's getting Weinstein now, and I'm really surprised the Sunset Strip bands haven't been, caught up in that. To be honest.
Well, yeah, and then some of it was male on male Weinstein kind of thing, like Janie Lane from Warrant. Yeah. There's a story about him being molested by an older musician, like basically drugged and raped. I mean, that's kind of scary stuff. So, I mean, I think that kind of thing, if it's girl or boy, that's clearly, I think that's always been wrong. I don't think there was ever a fine line there. It's just one of those things where people didn't talk about it. And that's one thing I would say. The Me Too is a good thing, because then these kind of things people are getting caught for this kind of crap. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even with like the actors too, like Corey Feldman and all that, and Corey Haim and everything. It gets so dark and weird when you start looking into that stuff, man. Like it's nuts.
Yeah. So back to Bang Tango though. So now you end up joining the band. Obviously, you're not in the band anymore, but I assuming you're still friends with those guys. Is there anything happening in that camp? I mean, I know they were going to do a tour. Obviously, that was cut short because of the coronavirus. Is there like maybe a new record with the original lineup in the works, or?
I can't speak for him, but I do love every single member of that band. I had a great time playing with them, and it's amazing that I ended up joining the band because I finished the movie and everybody liked it. Everybody in the band approved, even Joel Estee at one point. But then, lately he's just been kind of looking back on it and saying that it was a lapse of judgment from his drinking days, but it would kind of bum me out, because he really, really got it and really, really enjoyed it. It's not a fluff piece movie, it's very brutally honest. And Absolutely. I screened it once in Chicago. I'm sorry for going off on a tangent, but I screened it once in Chicago with the then current lineup there. This is right before I joined the band too. There was Joel Estee, Lance Eric, Timmy Russell, and Rowan Robertson, in Chicago, big screening. First time Joel Estee ever sees the movie too. So I made sure to sit like near him so I could watch his reactions. And as the movie's playing on the big screen, and Joe is on the screen talking, saying, things about other original band members and all that. Joel Estee's like, watching it. He stands up, points at the screen, and goes, "I didn't say that," as he's saying it.
That is funny.
And then afterwards, oh my God, the best was toward the end. I was like, oh God, Joe hates this movie so much. He's never going to talk to me again. And toward the end, he gets up, walks toward me, looks at me, goes, hey, can I swear on here?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Fuck yeah.
Okay. Okay. Fuck yeah. So he toward the end of the movie, it starts to get heated between him and Mark Knight. He
Yeah.
gets up, had enough. He walks toward me and he goes, Drew, what are you, some kind of fucking asshole or something, man? Then he storms out. And I start chasing after him like he's like my
Oh
girlfriend
no.
or something. I'm like, Joe, wait, you got to finish the movie. And he gets to the exit and he turns around and goes, "Ha, gotcha, asshole."
What an asshole! That is a shitty move. That's pretty funny actually. But man, I would have been. Yeah, that's hilarious. That's really funny.
Oh, yeah.
So
and
yeah.
Then after the movie, he took me aside and he said, "Drew, I really needed to see that. Sometimes the truth hurts, and I really appreciate you making this so I could actually see it, my career from a different point of view." So
yeah,
at that evening, he got it. But since then, he just kind of he's a bit self-conscious, I think, about it because he doesn't drink anymore, and that he was drinking at the time it was being made. So that's totally understandable. But
yeah.
I'm really proud of it. Then I ended up joining the band, and that's a whole other story.
Sure.
Itself, but
yeah.
up to you if you want to go there.
What is that? You hear that crunching noise? Is that you? What is it? I'm hearing like a crunching. Where's your mic?
Oh, I got it right here.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I don't know. I was just trying to figure out what that was. It was driving me nuts. So, anyway, so you were in Bang Tango, and then you were the guitarist for Chuck Mosley, who was the former singer of Faith No More, and you were his guitarist, and now you're actually making a documentary about him, and that's not out yet. That's coming out in 2021, right?
That's probably going to come out in like 2024, to be honest with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I haven't talked about it much, but we have, man, a lot of people are still grieving over Chuck. He was, it was such a unfortunate situation. I mean, the way he passed away and all that and everything. Loved him very much, and his family's still kind of on the fence about being involved and all that and everything. And I've been in touch with the Faith No More guys, and they're into being involved, but it's still, I think some more time needs to pass, because he left a lot of people in very awkward situations, personally and professionally, and all that and everything. But I think it'll see the light of day one day. I've got, to be honest with you, I've got one interview so far, and it's an amazing interview. It's with Matt Wallace, their producer, and he did the interview right after Chuck passed. Actually, it was a very, very emotional interview, and it's I could probably release it by itself, and it could probably count as a movie. It's a great interview. But yeah, I love Chuck very much. We really was very fortunate to play with him and get to know him, and all that. And he's such a great dude.
Yeah. So you got that project, and then you wrote a book. I have not read your book yet, but it's called Dark, Depressing, and Hilarious. Is that mostly about your time with Bang Tango, or also with Chuck Mosley, or?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I wrote the book as almost as like a goof, because I was like, everybody was coming out with these autobiographies, and I was like, let's see if I could do one, And I ended up writing it in 3 days. And
so how the hell do you have the energy to make books? See, I mean, I look at a guy like you, and see, this is a funny part. So I'm looking at all the stuff you're doing. I'm like, oh, he wrote a book, he made a movie, he plays in a band, he's got another book coming out, he's got another music project. I look at all the stuff you do, and I'm like, oh, he must have like some sort of trust fund, or his wife works, and you have a day job too. How the hell do you do all this stuff?
It's funny. I wrote the book at the day job, and
okay.
But yeah, I got a regular like 9 to 5 day job, Monday through Friday. I refurbish computers for a living, and I love it.
So you're able to write books while you do that.
Yeah, that was at a previous job actually.
Okay.
That job sucked. I was like, yeah, screw these guys. I'm gonna write a book. But the job I'm at now, though, I absolutely love. It's called Cascade Asset Management, and it's a wonderful place. Very small kind of company. It's amazing. But yeah, so the book just kind of fell out of me, and it's got a very fun kind of self-deprecating sense of humor about it.
Okay.
Like, me of all people writing an autobiography, I have no business doing that, but people seem to get a kick out of it though. Like it's like they get it, they get the whole angle of it,
Sure, for sure.
I never really took myself too seriously doing this stuff, because like I mean and the book was actually a way for me to like saying like, okay, I'm done with this stuff. Did the Bang Tango thing, play with Chuck and all that. Let's just walk away. And then here I am 2 years later with another movie, another book, and another album.
Yeah, you got a lot of projects going. You know, this is interesting too. You were doing a movie, which I forget which one it was, but on the set of the movie, and I saw the clip. It's on YouTube. You proposed to your wife, and it's such an odd clip because you're talking to your buddy about jerking. That's what it was. Yeah, it was the Krista one, and you're talking to your buddy about like jerking off or something, and then all of a sudden you turn to your now wife and you propose to her, and she must have thought like, is this like some sort of ad, or did she know that it was real right away?
Oh man. Well, that was it was while we were shooting a scene, and the director became a good friend of mine leading up to me being in the movie, and I orchestrated the whole thing for him to hire my girlfriend at the time to be like a featured extra that interacts with my character in the movie. And so the first day of shooting, at the end of the day, it's like 4:30 in the morning. All she had to do was sit there, turn around, and react to my character talking about. I forgot, it was like you know, do you even jerk off or something like that? It's something my character says to the other character.
To the other guy.
And the plan was, once you turned around to do it for the last take, for me to pop the question. And she was totally caught off guard because we were all tired and just miserable, and it was great. The clip's up on YouTube, actually.
Right. Yeah, I saw it. That's crazy.
It was awesome. The movie, I'd say check it out. It's the most romantic necrophilia love story you'll ever see.
How do you can watch it on Amazon Prime or?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Amazon Prime. You could order the Blu-ray from diabolicdvd.com. You could order the Blu-ray from the director directly as well. And it's a cool movie. The first like hour and a half is like a regular movie, then it goes straight to hell.
Hi,
hey,
David.
What's up, buddy?
Welcome to the show.
Horror Brothers, how are you?
Yeah. So he was telling us a story about him proposing to his wife on a movie set. I'm sure you know that story.
I do. Is it a horror movie?
Yeah.
Her name was Krista, and just totally caught her off guard at like the end of the day of shooting, 4:30 in the morning. We're all miserable and tired, and
scary marriage indeed.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
So tell me the story how you two met, because I think it was at 2016 Rocklahoma. Now, aren't a lot of the bigger bands like Megadeth? Aren't a lot of times they're sequestered from the smaller opening bands? So how did you guys get? Drew? How did you get access to David? I guess is my question.
I snuck in. No. Actually, believe it or not, Bang Tango was one of the big bands that day. We opened up the main stage.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we were all in the same backstage area. So it was Bang Tango, Pop Evil, 6 a.m., Megadeth, Disturbed, and Rob Zombie. Our trailer, the Bang Tango trailer, is right next to Disturbed's trailer. And I remember I was just kind of hanging out, in front of our trailer, and just like, I have no business being here. Oh man. And then I saw Dave coming out. I was like, oh, I always hear how nice of a guy he is. And I've always been a huge Megadeth fan. So I went up and said, hey, and just hit it off. And at that time, I was talking to Tom Hazard, his business partner. And so there's a cool connection there too. And so from there, we just kind of kept in touch. And, did some work for the label for like video stuff and everything. And hit the road with Tom Hazard a lot, promoting the label and all that. And
very cool.
Kind of unfolded from there.
Yeah. So I know you guys have a lot of projects. You have a book and an album coming out. I want to get to that, but if we could just go back in time a little bit. I'm a huge Megadeth fan, as probably every kid that grew up in the 90s was. And so I have a few Megadeth questions if we could go that route for a little bit, and then we'll get back to the new stuff that you guys are working on.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is that okay? So I'm just curious, like, David, you moved to LA, and was your mission to go there to be like a rock star? Because you came from Minnesota, and you just happened to live at the same apartment complex as Dave Mustaine.
Yeah, 100% on both questions.
Okay.
I mean, and again, but Dave, Metallica was not Kill 'Em All was not recorded. In fact, I met Dave about 6 weeks after he was let go out of Metallica, and he had moved to this apartment there on Sycamore Avenue in Hollywood, and that was the address that I would move to. In fact, I was thinking about, until I could get sort of landed, plugged in, and kind of learn LA. I was considering going to Musicians Institute, the Bass Institute of Technology. So, they'd sent like a list of apartments, to kind of choose from in the area. So back when I was still living in Minnesota, I picked that one on Sycamore. And as it turns out, there was a woman who managed the apartment. She was from a little town called Mountain Lake, Minnesota, about 30 minutes from where I grew up. So, it kind of made the hometown connection. Okay, we kind of know someone from Minnesota. Maybe we can trust her. You know what I'm
Okay.
moving? You know, so, and it's funny because I've read the Ellefson family history. In fact, I've amended it. It was actually sort of a download that we offered as the VIP pre-sale purchases on the book that Tom and I wrote last year called More Life with Death. And as I read through it, you know, over the years, you know, most of the Ellefsons went to California at some point. You know, we came over from Norway to Minnesota. It's where they landed in the 1800s. The farm that's still in our family was founded there. And many of the aunts, uncles, even my dad, all made some journey and or lived in California at some point in time during the 20th century. So I never quite got my dad. He really wanted me to go out there. He liked it. He was not a musician. He didn't get the music business, but he saw that I was serious about what I did. And, you know, he let me follow my path, and, you know, he supported me in doing that. And yeah, so I move in, I meet Dave, lives upstairs. And I could tell right away, Dave was definitely meant to be a rock star. You know, just the way he carried himself and his very ballsy attitude, you know, basically willing to fight anyone at any time over, you know, if you stood in the way of his path of what he wanted to do.
That's awesome.
And I'm lucky because, you know, I was not that guy. I was very much, again, a mild-mannered guy from Minnesota, and we were taught very differently where I grew up. You know, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all, that kind of thing. Well, Dave showed me a very different path in rock and roll. You know, that rock and roll was, you know, with real rock stars. You know, with whether you're Lemmy, Nikki Sixx, Gene Simmons, Axl Rose, Dave Mustaine. You know, this is a different era. You know, a different time when you know, when you know, you said a lot with and through your music, and Dave had a very different life than me growing up, and so it was kind of interesting, the yin to the yang of two guys named Dave who would meet at an apartment on Sycamore in Hollywood and start this band called Megadeth. And
yeah,
our differences brought about how special the thing really was, you know, that we didn't have to be the same. It was our differences that created the interest. Still to this day, the fans love this kind of
absolutely
dynamic between the two of us.
Right. So in those early days, I know Megadeth would go through a lot of lineup changes, but even before the first album, you guys auditioned like 15 drummers, and you spent 6 months looking for a singer before you settled on having Dave Mustaine just be the singer. It kind of reminds me, I don't know if you're a Seinfeld fan, but like on that show Seinfeld, he's always dating all these different girls. And then later in the season, he decides that he finally meets the girl he's been looking for. He's in love with himself. And so, you know, it's kind of like Dave Mustaine. He's like, it's me. I've been what I've been looking for. But for those 6 months, was there any names that would stand out that would go on to, of those drummers or singers that you guys auditioned, that would go on to other bands that we'd know?
No, not really. And I love your Seinfeld analogy, and I'm a big Seinfeld fan.
Yes.
And actually, it was not Dave's idea to be the singer. It was actually my idea.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
it's funny how it happened, because so we did originally have a drummer named Dijon Carruthers, and he was our drummer. As I met Dave, he had a singer named Laura Kane that he was working with. You know, Dave was writing everything, and he had another kid he was kind of trying to teach how to play the bass, this guy named Matt Kisselstein. But the intention was this band would be called Fallen Angel. And so when me and my Minnesota brood showed up, me and my friend Greg Hanovitz and my buddy Brad Schmidt and his friend Brent, they lived in an apartment right next door to Dave. Me and Greg lived in the apartment right underneath of Dave. And in fact, it's funny. I remember in reading More Life with Death, I had Brad chime in on the book, and he reminded me that like Dave's BC Rich that he had from Metallica was actually out at BC Rich getting some work done on it. So he didn't have a guitar. So he was borrowing his roommate Tracy had I think a Gibson, an Epiphone or something that he would write stuff on. And he would actually ask Brad next door if he could borrow his Gibson Explorer from time to time to write. So Dave didn't even have a guitar, you know. He was, I mean, Dave, you're not from Metallica. I mean, he was really kind of down to nothing, rebuilding. But there was again, we rallied around Dave, you know. Obviously there was something very special there, you know, and the first lyric he had was a song called Megadeth, which later got retitled To Set the World Afire. And Dave, Greg and I, we were in bands together growing up in the Midwest. I mean, we've known each other since like 5th grade or something. And we were always in bands together. So, Greg, he goes, dude, we got to, after we met Dave that first night, he goes, dude, we got to play with that guy. That guy's awesome. And I said, yeah, I know. And so Greg started playing with him first, kind of as the second guitar player. And then once Greg was in there, he told Dave, he goes, dude, you got to ditch Matt, the bass. Get Ellefson in here. Like, he's a real bass player, and he knows what he's doing. And so we sat around and jammed a little bit one day, and Dave's like, yeah, okay, he's a good player. And I think the main thing with Dave is being willing to do what Dave wants you to do. I mean, that really is the marching orders. And I got that right away. I saw very clearly, and Dave clearly had a path. He had a sound. Obviously, he had success with this yet to be known band Metallica. Of course, people knew of them. They had a record. They had just signed their deal with Megaforce and were cutting Kill 'Em All at that time. But they weren't the big sensation we know them to be now. But they definitely, everybody loved them, and they were cool. And Dave was playing me the No Life to Leather demo, and I loved it. I thought it was great. So it's so I got it. I mean, I got that. I signed on to the vision right away from the beginning, and I guess that's probably the reason I'm here all these years later. Is I was willing to put in the work. I was willing to put in the time, suit up, show up, dress up, speak up, and just get on board with it, So it's been that journey.
Yeah, because how did you stick with him through all those times when there was all these lineup changes in the 80s and 90s? I mean, you stuck with him for why he never tried to fire you, or you just knew how to?
No, I don't, no. I mean, like, we certainly had some disagreements, but we never came to blows.
Okay.
That happens in some bands. That's the end, but we never did. And I'm sure there's times he wanted to punch me, over things in there, but I was like, because again, we're not only were we forming this band, we were basically growing. I was 18, he was 21. We were growing up together, so in a lot of ways, he was an older brother, and of course, he had street smarts. He knew the ins and outs of LA, and yet my sort of softer disposition often kind of brought common sense and reasonableness to Dave at times. You know what I mean? So we both brought something to the table. But again, this was definitely Dave's vision. And again, I knew, like, get on board with this. Like, don't fight this. You can offer your input on it, but follow the narrative, if you will. And I think that's the main thing is that's what it's like in Megadeth, period. And I think the people that I never used it as a stepping stone for a solo career, any of that kind of crap. And there were some people over the years that have done that, and they're no longer here. And I very much believed in what we were creating. To me, a band is a gang. It's your family. It's your tribe. It's who you are as a person. It's your home base. I left my family of origin back in Minnesota to start a new family out in LA, and that became Megadeth. And you have each other's backs financially, creatively, as you're dating chicks, getting screwed over by chicks, signing leases, breaking leases, getting thrown out of apartments, getting on drugs, getting strung out on drugs, going to rehab, getting clean. I mean, everything that goes with it. I mean, Dave and I grew up together, I mean, we really did. And now here we are all these years later. We've grown up together. We've gone through the good times, a bunch of bad times. We've raised our families around each other, so there's a lot to the story. It is
Absolutely.
Two dudes in a band who play some songs.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting doing the research. I didn't realize Dimebag Darrell almost joined Megadeth, and Slash at the peak of Guns N' Roses' career. This is just recent that I'm learning about this, but he was jamming with you guys, and he was a big fan of Megadeth, and you guys were smoking crack, because it sounds like a cracked out idea that he was going to leave Guns N' Roses. Not that Megadeth isn't amazing too, but he was actually considering leaving that band for Megadeth.
I mean, as a friend of Slash, I would never let him leave Guns N' Roses. And in fact, I think we even talked about that. It's like, there's no fucking way you're leaving Guns N' Roses. What's funny, they had just come home from Australia. And so it was late 88. Dave, we were off the road from the So Far So Good Sweat tour. We were writing the new material that would become Rust in Peace. Jeff Young was asked to leave the band. So we were down to me, Dave, and Chuck Beeler. And I mean, look, the discussion started about guitar players. I told Dave I had just hung out with the guys in Pantera. And we knew of it wasn't called Dimebag then, he was called Diamond Darrell.
Right.
He was in a lot of the guitar magazines. He was definitely heralded as a rising star. So we reached over to him, but he said, he goes, like, with me comes my brother Vinnie. And of course we didn't need a drummer. And, you know, thank God it didn't happen because the world got Pantera.
Yeah.
That
Amazing.
was the generation behind Megadeth and Metallica and the Big Four was the Pantera movement. And we reached out to Jeff Waters of Annihilator. Jeff, you know, Annihilator was really starting to blow up pretty big. And now Jeff and I are dear friends, and we have many chats and fun laughs about, hey, what that would have been like, you know what I mean? But a lot of my friends, I tell them, I say, look, I love you, dude, and you're a great musician, but you wouldn't last in Megadeth for more than one chorus of Symphony of Destruction. Trust me, you know? And especially even as the recent drummer thing went around a couple years ago, I was like, look, dude, you're a great drummer, you know, you're not meant to be in this band, you know? Because I just know my friends and I know how the dynamic is, you know, and like I say, friends don't let friends join Megadeth, you know? It's just not, you know, it's you, because you've really got to put the professional foot forward, you know. And like Kiko, I did not know Kiko. I had just played with him in November of 2014. By January 2015, it was just back down to me and Dave again, rebuilding the band, new management. And Dave called me one day and said, man, I saw this guy Kiko online. I think he'd be a good fit. I said, hey, I know him. I just jammed with him. I literally just got his phone number and his email. So I hit him and I said, hey, guess what? Your number's up. You want to join Megadeth, you know? And, you know, and so that's how things happen usually. You know, usually you're sort of chosen. You know, it's never like, hey, can I put my name in the hat? That's not usually how these gigs happen.
Okay.
You know, Metal Allegiance, we would do that too. We would, you know, me and Mengi and Portnoy and Skolnick, we would choose the people that we felt were right for it. It was never sort of blind submissions. As famous as our friends are, hey man, can I sing on your record? To be like, I don't know that there's the right place for you. You know what I mean? So, you know, usually when you're creating it usually the call comes from this way out that way. And, you know, same with Dirk Verbeuren. Chris Adler had recommended him when the transition needed to happen. And we did not know Dirk. So bringing Dirk in, there was no kind of past friendship. It was a brand new relationship starting with, first of all, you got to be fucking badass and nail the gig. And if you can nail the gig, then we'll see if we can hang. And if we can hang, hey, then you can be a full-time member of the band. You know, so there's kind of a process. For sure. Jason Newsted talked about that when he joined Metallica. You know, he got the gig and they kind of sort of hazed him for a year.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, you're like sort of in the trial phase for a while to make sure we can hang with you, because that's the other part of being in a band is, you know, can we hang with you on the road, or, you know, are you going to be that guy where your socks stink and your breath smells and, you know, you leave your frickin' pizza on the couch of the bus every night? Like,
yeah. Now, how does that work with hanging with a band now? Because you're 30 years sober. Congratulations on that. But like, how does that work? You know, like if you're hanging with Drew or Vinnie with your new band, do you require them to not have booze around you, or?
I don't know. Look, no. I'm the alcoholic. I'm the one that reacts strangely to alcohol and cocaine and heroin and drugs, right? So it's me. When it goes in my body that the problem happens in my life. So if you want to put it in your body, rock on by all means.
But that doesn't tempt you if it's backstage or anything? Or?
Nah, it's not a temptation. I mean, look, I take the daily measures needed to make sure that I, you know, am in spiritually fit and mentally and physically fit to not have that, you know, come into my body anymore. You know, look, we're in the entertainment business, and even if you weren't in the entertainment business, you could be a freaking lawyer, a plumber, or you know, roofing houses. There's going to be booze around, you know what I mean? So it's about being your own mental defense has to be there. You know, it's funny because, you know, everything that will kill you is literally within an arm's reach of you by your own hand. Right? Like no one ever dumped booze and heroin in me.
Right. That's
you know
true.
What I mean? By my own hand. So it's never you that got me loaded. It was me that got me loaded. So I think coming to understand that is like, okay, my addiction is not conditional. It's not, or it's not sort of outwardly conditional. It's inwardly conditional. So make sure the inner self is right. And you know, again, for 3 decades, that problem seems to have been removed from me.
That's awesome. I had a question. I always wondered this, like, in 92, when you guys did Countdown to Extinction, such a great album, probably one that sold the
most. One of my
favorites
too.
Absolutely, yeah. I think a lot of people's. But was there a conscious decision to dump the mascot Vic for the cover? I know he was on the back with the countdown thing, but what was the theory behind that? Were you trying to do a different kind of look for the band at that point?
Again, that was a major intentional step into the mainstream. Now, again, the mainstream was heavy metal, was now in the mainstream and very popular. Of course, Headbangers Ball, Metallica was blown up, Queensryche. I mean, it was our moment for sure, to step into that spotlight. And we didn't want to get rid of Vic at all because he was the mascot. But we hired Hugh Syme out of Canada to do the artwork for that record and also for Euthanasia. And so he presented an idea of the levitating old man in the jail cell and everything. So he presented that idea. We didn't go to him and say, hey, we need you to incorporate our mascot into this, at least not that I remember. So that's why I think on the back we talked about Vic with the abacus doing the count.
Yeah, the abacus. That was cool.
So there was a narrative there with Vic, but it wasn't going to be the presence on the cover. And with the Rust in Peace campaign, we did not only the cover of that, but we did the Hank Ray Teen stuff. We did the nuclear Vic. We had all these pretty powerful graphic images, So we
absolutely.
thought, okay, rather than just try to keep one-upping that, let's turn a corner and try something a little bit different. Okay.
Yeah. And then the Euthanasia album, another great album. So many good. I could spend an entire episode on each one of these albums, but I just try to get one question on some of them. But the song The Killing Road, that's one of my favorite Megadeth songs. Was there ever talk of releasing that as a single or trying to license it for movie or TV shows? I feel like it'd be great for like a movie or so, or a TV show.
Yeah, look, you're probably right. I mean, it's funny because now, look at the iPhone commercial this last year, they used, Last Rites, Love to Death off, track one, album one, so who knew that? So obviously somebody inside of Apple was a fan of that one.
That's awesome.
So, who knows these, these people that do, the musical direction for these productions. I mean, who knows if there's a fan in there? Hey, maybe it'll be you one day. You'll get a gig working for a Sony picture and you'll be, hey, I want to put Killing Road.
Oh, I would definitely put Megadeth songs on a lot of different things.
Exactly.
So awesome.
I don't think it was ever talked about as a single. We did play it. And in fact, we have played it even more recently.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Added in the set when we've kind of reached for a deep cut. It's a fun song to play. It's cool. The riff is fun.
Yeah. So, sorry, I want to go through each album, but we don't have time. So I'll just move forward. In 2002, you left Megadeth, or Megadeth disbanded, however you want to say it. You went and worked for Peavy Amps. And so what is it? Talk about the transition of going from playing in a metal band to working in the corporate world. I didn't even know until I did the research that you left Megadeth for like 8 or 9 years or whatever.
Well, Dave called up. There was a situation that was kind of transpiring in 2001 and saw it kind of coming. And Dave called me up one day in February of 2002 and said, hey, I quit Megadeth. And, which essentially means the band is over, and we didn't dissolve our business interests for a couple years later, but, which is what the legal stuff was around. But it's that moment where you go like, you're kind of looking around going, wow, this is really big. It's cool. It's working well. And it's, of course, for me, it'd been almost 20 years of my life. And then one day, that's it. It's over. And, followed by, oh shit, how am I going to raise my family? How am I going to pay my mortgage? All the realities that come with that. And I think on one point we needed the break. We'd been pushing and pushing. We'd gone through so many transitions, band members, managers, people in our ear about, if you just change the logo, then you won't be so metal. And if you just change your songs, then the radio will accept you, so all these different things. And every great artist has gone through that, whether you're Kiss or Peter Frampton or Judas Priest, or I don't care who you are, you've gone through those transitions. And part of it is because of the things outside of you and the culture outside of you is also changing, not only are you sort of changing as you grow up, but, Seattle music, new metal, FM, the Disturbed, Godsmack kind of FM heavy metal guys were coming onto the scene. There was a lot of changes going down, So how do you sort of stay competitive? How do you stay in that realm? Yet, you change too much, and then your fans who actually made you who you are, now they're pissed and they hate you. You know what I mean? So it's kind of there's all these different little calculated decisions you have to make when you're sort of, running your band, the creative, the business, all that. So on one hand, it was kind of a breath of fresh air. I never felt like my time in Megadeth was done. I always kind of felt like it was a little bit of just maybe a little internal brawl between us, and it would come around, and it did, of course, in 2010. But in those 8 years, and Megadeth only worked, I think, maybe 5 of those years. I think Dave started in 2004 and put out a record in 2005. So we put out 3 records in that time that I didn't perform on. But during that time, I did. I called everybody. I was like, it's called Monty Connor or we got connected at Roadrunner Records. I talked to the people at Fender. Actually, the people at Fender here reached out to me about a position there. And I called a friend of mine who used to work for St. Louis Music, who had Ampeg, Crate, and Alvarez brands. And he had hired Ken Hensley, God rest his soul, he just passed away. He had hired Ken Hensley from Uriah Heep, who was a very famous musician, and that band did very well. He hired Ken to run his artist relations for Ampeg back in the 80s and 90s. So I said, Tony, you're not going to believe it, but Megadeth is over. Everybody's like, what the hell happened? I was like, well, it's that moment. So he said, he goes, listen, I got something I'm doing with Peavy. I'm consulting with them on some stuff, and I might actually have an artist relations position for you, kind of like I did with Hensley. I said, dude, I'd be great. And I was actually using Peavy products. I was using Peavy bass amps and stuff. And so that's how that happened. And I watched Ken Hensley. I watched how he had done it with Ampeg, and he was my role model, quite honestly. And so I just got in the trenches and changed my shirt that said Megadeth to the one that said Peavy, and and I got on board with it. And I went to college. I got my business degree, which I always wanted to do. And I just I changed some gears in my life. But what's funny is a little band called F5 developed around me, and that to me was clear evidence that my playing days were not over.
Gotcha.
Bass player,
right?
Recording artist. That was not done. That this thing with Peavy is great. It's cool, but it's a season.
Sure.
And I did it. I did it for 7 years. I ran the whole global artist relations. I think we did a lot of great stuff. Great artists. Brought people like Kid Rock's band and Slipknot, Nickelback, and the big players at that time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it was kind of cool because they were all big Megadeth fans, so I got to work with them. Even big Christian artists. I got to see, Megadeth really impacted a lot more people than I guess I probably had realized, And so it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about just kind of servanthood. We're in a business where we stand in the spotlight and everybody panders to us.
Right.
And on the other side of it, I learned, and this is probably where being from Minnesota helped, was, hey, this is about serving them, and I got to, be able to help them and oftentimes even offer some of my own experience and suggestions about the path to and in rock stardom. And so yeah, it was great. I really appreciated that role. I learned a lot about business and manufacturing, and it's funny, it was right at a time, 2002, when I started working at Peavy. It was right as everything was moving to China. So I got to watch that whole China syndrome, all the shit that we're bitching about now about how we don't make anything in America. I was there at the downbeat of when it was happening. And the music industry is a microcosm of, again, automotive and Boeing and Apple and that level stuff. But, Peavy's was a big player in that day. So I got to watch, Hartley Peavy. Oh my gosh, I have such respect for him. And here's his company he had built by himself in Mississippi, this big monolith organization, and just watching it just fragments away because he had, in order to stay competitive, he had to move stuff to China, and it changed how instruments are made now. Most of them are made overseas, a lot of them, and so it was a really interesting time. Eddie Van Halen, of course, was at Peavy at that time, and the first trade show I worked at NAMM, Eddie, and I met Eddie at that time, and so yeah, it was very cool. It was made a lot of. So you had that kind of break, and then you guys get back together. You made some more albums. You won a Grammy. That's pretty exciting. And then now I hear that you are working on a new Megadeth album.
Can you tell us anything about the album, when it's coming out, a song title, a lyric, a theme, an artwork, special guests, anything? Give me something.
No. I can't. There's nothing I can tell you.
It's all secret.
Done.
It's locked down, huh?
Well, it's not even that it's a secret. It's not done yet. So
okay.
I can't tell you, like when something's done is when it's best to talk about it.
Okay.
Then you're talking about evidence, hard facts, as opposed to, well, I think it might.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So
well, let's move into since I know we're getting short on time, let's talk about the projects that you do have done. Cause the two of you have a few different things going on. So the first thing is the book, Star Hitman, which it's an interesting idea. It's about these
right here.
There
we
go.
So yeah, there you go. Yeah.
It's about spies traveling the world in a rock band who are also hitmen, right? And it's called, the character's name is Sledge. The Sledge Chronicles.
Sledge is the character. Actually, Drew came up with that. It's funny. The idea came to me when I was on tour last year in November, like literally a year ago in South America. I was in Brazil, and the idea came to me. I hit Drew right away. I thought I need an accomplice on this one, and so we started lining out the characters and getting the story. And I think probably it's interesting because I've written several books, nonfiction, how-to books, memoirs, and stuff. And I think probably a couple of things with this writing fiction, and I always wanted to write fiction. I'm a fan of it, and I know Drew is a horror and thriller kind of writer, so I knew he'd be good to pull in, to be a partner on this. But I think a couple of things. One, as you develop a character, you ask yourself, is this character going to be here just for a moment, or are they going to be in this for a long time? And knowing that this is going to be a book series, that there's going to be several in a series, it's like, does the character stay in the series? Do they disappear for a bit and appear back later? So I think those are some of the fun things me and Drew get to work on, because it's kind of like an album. Usually you make the album and it's done, unless it's a concept album, Pink Floyd, The Wall Part 2. You kind of create it and it's done and you move on. Well, with the book, and especially with this particular one, we intentionally set out to make it a series. That's why it's called the Sledge Chronicles.
Sure.
Because it's chronicling his journey as he goes through this rock star lifestyle. And Drew and I both, being in bands and having experienced, the rock star lifestyle, we can write a little bit from our own, personal history, yet it's clearly fictional. And I think the other thing about it too is sort of the point of view that we wrote it from, because most books are usually written sort of by a third person, and then the characters weigh in quotations, And then Sledge said, "Come over here, Sally," end of quote, What we decided to do with this was to write it actually from Sledge's perspective. Like it's him talking. So it's almost like him writing his own memoir, his own autobiographical memoir. And that really opened up some very clever angles that I've not seen, quite honestly, in a lot of other books.
Do you think that you would try to make it into a movie at some point?
Well, we could. Drew's the filmmaker. So, I mean, we didn't talk about that. We said, anything that we write, we started the Ellefson Book Company.
Okay.
And as a way, kind of like we started Ellefson Films to put out Dwellers and then anything else that comes after that. We started the Ellefson Book Company because we also have some memoirs. I think the Chris Poland memoir we're going to put out through that. And actually quite a handful of our rock star buddies are now hitting us up to to have an outlet to put these books out. So we're going to do that as well. But but to also be able to put out fictional and all kinds of different stuff. It doesn't even have to be music related stuff. And by having the book company, obviously would feed very easily over into the film company. And of course, EMP record label, we can do soundtracks and do all kinds of stuff.
Perfect. Yeah. And so the movie you have coming out is called Dwellers, and it's like a found footage horror movie. And you guys direct, or Drew directs, edits, writes, stars in it, and you're doing a lot of those things as well.
Yeah, that's Drew's thing. Yeah, we're at Mad Monster Convention in February 20th in Charlotte, North Carolina, is where we're going to premiere the film.
Okay.
They've offered that to us. So yeah, so it's cool. Me and Tom Hazer make a couple little cameos in it, but that's Drew's baby, man. And I loved it. I thought the idea of it was very hip and cool, and so that's all Drew.
Yeah, and then the other thing you guys have together is the band Lucid, which I just had Vinnie on my show last week from Sponge, but it's also got the Mike Heller, who's the drummer from Fear Factory. So I heard one song, but how would you guys describe the music? Like, how would you describe it to people?
Well, it's interesting. We in writing the book, this look, let's face it, 2020 was a year of, hey, fuck it, why not? Anything goes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to write on a song? Sure. You want to
Yeah.
play in a song? Sure. You know what I mean? It's why not? We're all sitting in
You want to do the Chuck Shoe podcast? Sure, why not? I love it.
You know, Drew sent me a track and said, hey, can you throw a bass in here? And then quite honestly, I was writing a new Ellefson solo record at the time. So my studio ears were on. I was plugged in, ready to go. He sent it over, played on it. I was like, yeah, this is freaking cool, man. I wasn't really, I've seen Drew play. I know of his Bang Tango history and the other stuff he's done, but this was really cool stuff that spoke to me. And then he called me up and he said, hey, Vin's going to come in and lay and write some vocals, some lyrics, and lay some tracks. And it turned into a thing. And then we thought, you know what, why not have like sort of a soundtrack to the book? And quite honestly, this actually is a photo of Vinnie. He was
perfect.
His name and likeness to Sledge. So he is, I mean, we've kind of, tweaked it a little bit, but it's So Vin is part of the book. We maybe should just call it the Vinnie Chronicles. I don't know, Vinnie Chronicles.
Okay.
But, and a couple of the songs tie into the book too.
They do, and he did an awesome job. Like I'll hear these clever little ways that Vinnie writes some. I love him. I mean, I love Sponge. Great, he's such a rock star. He's just a cool guy, and he writes such great lyrics, very trippy lyrics. He's a type of lyricist I've never worked with before, so it's fun with that. And Drew's a great guitar player. I mean, really a great guitar player. Mike Keller, he's good friends with Dirk Verburen, and Dirk's like, oh, dude, Mike's awesome. And they're good friends, and so to work with Mike and just walk in and. We all met in LA. We had the songs together. We all met in LA mid-July. I plugged in and banged out 10 songs in 2 days. And it was fun. I was just like, hey, produce me. Let me know. I got ideas. Let me know what you want. And Mike was very, very good in the studio, really knows his way around as these tracks have been coming together. It's cool stuff, and it's very different. It's obviously not thrash metal, hence the name Lucid has this kind of, I think, kind of feels like what the music sounds like.
Okay.
We got the one thrashy song. Remember the one you were like, I don't want to do this one.
I was like, what are you guys writing shit from like Justice for All here? What are you guys doing?
So there's one song like that.
Okay.
We're all metalheads. We have to, yeah.
What is that one called? Can you say?
It's kind of this Stone Temple Pilot-y kind of grungy thing a little bit, but it's I don't want people to just get it that's what it sounds like, because that
song's called am I able to say what it's called?
Yeah, of course. I don't care.
It's called Damned.
Okay. Now, would you guys tour for this band?
What's that?
Would you tour with this band or do any live shows?
I think look, once we all get out of quarantine now, I hope year, I think we're just going to be running like wild rabbits, just going and doing anything we can. I mean, a lot of 2021, of course, is a reschedule of 2020. Look, there'll be new Megadeth stuff next year. Sponge has a new record coming out next year. So there's some traffic copping that needs to happen there to kind of, have the flow. But I think everybody's also pretty reasonable. It's like, look, there's new music coming out. I always say it's kind of like, quarantine records are kind of like Super Bowl babies, 9 months after the Super Bowl, suddenly, I mean, I'm born in November, maybe I'm a Super Bowl baby, I don't know, but it's like, 9 months after the Super Bowl, they always say that there's this influx of births.
Interesting.
People are all holed up on the couch watching the Super Bowl and whatever else they're doing.
That's interesting.
And so I think 2021 is going to be the same way with music. I mean, I think it is for me, for sure. I mean, this no cover record.
Yeah.
Drew,
how do you do all these I was asking Drew about that earlier, and Drew's got a day job, but how can you guys give me some tips on work ethic? I think if I do like 2 or 3 podcasts a week, I feel like I've put in a full work week, but you guys are doing movies, books, coffee companies, bands. How do you do that? I don't understand. What's the secret?
You got to find your zone. You got to find that mojo. Once you lock onto something and you start going for it, you just go for it hard, and you just kind of, got to find your right pace. And this kind of, hit on something until to the point where you're not sick of it and you can just keep on going with it. Sometimes you got to take a break and just go on to something else for a little bit. So that's why I do so many things, because I get bored with, well, not bored, but I get, to a point with one thing, but like, okay, I need to step away and work on something else for a little bit. And then just kind of bounce back and forth. And that's always been my thing. You echo that, Dave?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, again, it's every day. I mean, me and Tom Hazer talk several times a day, and we'll kind of, hey, let's do this. Hey, man, we about to do some covers. Hey, how about we do this? And then, so there's always that. With, Drew and I, once I think we kind of started to find our creative mojo together back in probably April or so when he sent me that first track. And again, this book was already well on its way. And again, the book kind of got to a point, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, I see these emails and Drew will send me these chapters. I'm like, holy smokes, dude, you're like killing it here. This is awesome. And then that inspires me to get back into the book. The music stuff kind of went up and then it sort of disappeared for a bit. Next thing you know, it's like, hey, let's meet in July. And hey, the songs are pretty well lined out now. And it's like, wow, great. So, yeah, things go through seasons. You know, I think that's the thing with creativity. You can't force it, but when it's there and the floodgates are open, man, you got to go with it. I mean, honestly, look, I just got home from tour Monday morning and I was a little shot out. I mean, we hit it pretty hard through the Midwest. And honestly, I was kind of thinking I'd come home and just sort of glide down into Thanksgiving. And I've been working harder this week than I was last week. You know what I mean? And but that's what it is. It's sort of like, you know, I've learned over the years, nothing feeds momentum like momentum. And when you've got momentum, you've got to go with it, man. You've just got to keep when the phone's ringing. Because you go back to 2002 when Megadeth ended, dude, it got dark real quick, you know, and I was calling people, and I mean, my phone was ringing that way. You know, I was that guy going, hey, can I sing on this? Or, you know, I'm not singing, but can I do this? And
wow,
get a real job. Like, so I've been there. I've been when it's dark, and it's crickets and scarecrows and the ravens out in the corn.
So you like being busy. You like how many hours a week do you work, would you say?
That's because, again, Megadeth, from the minute I met Dave, I mean, we're rocking. So for 20 years, and then I just stopped. And I was like, this sucks, man. I do not like, I'm way too motivated. And again, being of clear mind, my mind's working. So to have things going, I've been used to doing this, you know, and quite honestly, as fun as it was, and again, I had to be solely dedicated to Megadeth those first 20 years, you know,
absolutely.
There's no option. You have to be united. But then there comes a point in life like now where it's fun to have a handful of other things as well as Megadeth, because Megadeth, you know, we've shut down now for a couple of years. We've done a little bit of stuff, but we've been working behind the scenes on an album. And so, you know, obviously COVID shut things down this year. So it's fun to have a bunch of other horses in the race, you know, and kind of get them up to the starting line. So when COVID happened, I feel like I was prepared. It's kind of like, that's cool. We're shutting down. No problem. Let's get to work on some other stuff, you know, and not freak out. Because I've learned never to put all my eggs in one basket, and I haven't for the last 20 years, and it's paid off for me.
Absolutely. And yeah, you have a new album out. People should check out Ellefson, No Cover. It's all cover songs. No cover means like there's no cover to get into the bar.
No cover to get in. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
I love it.
My alter ego of Drew Fortier performs on that.
What, did they misspell your name or something?
Yeah, well, there was a thing on Apple Music when it came out last week. We had to do a retime. Well, it's funny because there's a hidden track. It ends with track 18 by Fastway, Say What You Will. But if you leave the CD in, there's a bonus hidden track on there.
Oh.
That is actually Chips Enough, me and Drew, and Vin actually sings on.
Right.
In fact, maybe we'll even put that song. I think we're going to put that song on the Lucid record.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Well, I know.
Speaking of which, we got Lasso Lamert mixing the Lucid album, and I think we may have him do a remix of Down to the Lead too. And Lassa is amazing. He's done like Ailstorm and the World Dane and Sanctuary and stuff like that.
Cool. Well, I know you guys got to get going, so I do like to end each episode with a highlighting a charity. And so, Dave, I know you work with you have a youth music foundation, where you set up all these like online tutoring with all these rock stars helping kids, right? Yeah.
David Ellefson Youth Music Foundation. Our link is ellefsonyouthmusicfoundation.org. There's a little button up there to donate. I mean, foundations, nonprofits are always doing some kind of fundraising stuff. Our initiative earlier this year was a Schools Out initiative where we gave free music lessons to students all around the world. So that's my highlight and my charity, quite honestly. That was really a great way as things were shutting down in the world. It was great to have that platform there because, I called everybody up and I just said, hey, listen, why don't we give some free music lessons to everybody? It'll get us out of our own head. It'll keep us out of fear and freaking out that the sky's falling. our lives are over, as much as our tours are going away and stuff's going to change this year, let's get into action helping other people, because that's a sure way to get you out of yourself.
For sure. Do you ever get people reaching out to you like that are depressed or suicidal or going through a rough time? And do you look at those messages, or, I mean, cause I'm assuming you get a lot of messages. You can't go through every message on Instagram and Facebook and email.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I have people that kind of handle the social media stuff and look over that. But yeah, I hear about them, and sometimes on live streams and people post little comments and stuff, and I pick up on it, and I know, look, some of it's alcoholism and addiction, so I know I've been there. Sometimes it's people growing, they're teenagers, are going through that whole thing, kind of misunderstood by parents, and I get that. That's what rock and roll largely is hey, this is my voice, this is my tribe. And look, I've lived all that myself, so look, anytime I can try to be helpful, and even through the foundation we've done some stuff like that, with people that have depression, and it's an interesting society we live in, because in America there's sort of this mindset that if we have our basic needs met, we won't want any more. But we know in a capitalist society that once you get a little, you want a little more,
Sure.
And that's a sure way to lead to a depressing lifestyle. And it's not to say that you can't be blessed with abundance and have nice things and be comfortable. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the propensity in human nature and in some of our own personal natures. And I know that about myself as well, that, that can't be the end game. That can't be the pursuit. And I think all the stuff that, when I see those kind of people, I kind of try to focus it back. Like, what is your interest? What gets you excited? What wakes you up in the morning and gets you? Mine has always been music. I mean, I'm doing the same thing at age 56 today in November that I did back when I was 11 years old.
It's amazing.
Getting excited about music, and talking about this, it's all the stuff we just talked about,
Yeah.
So,
well,
find your path, follow your path, man.
Yeah. No, I'll let you go, David, because I know you got stuff to do. I had one last question though, before I let you go, because I did some research. I watched a lot of interviews that you did. I noticed that you're a total pro in interviews. Like you are the same person if you're talking to Eddie Trunk or if you're talking to like a 10-year-old kid. Is that something you just learned over being in the music business for so many years, or did managers like kind of coach you on how to act in interviews?
Well, I remember the very first interview that I did with Megadeth. It was probably 1985 or 86. And I remember I read it back and I sat with Dave and he pointed some things out. He goes, "No, see how you talked about this here. No. And he, because he was being critical because it was, as we called it, rock school, trying to, first of all, we wanted a consistent narrative in the band.
Yeah.
You can't have one guy over here talking about jazz, another guy over here talking about, let's get a consistent narrative. And that's sort of creating that. And then, of course, as I did interviews over the years, I mean, I remember, I think it was when into Euthanasia, we actually hired an interview coach. And I remember sitting in London and going through some interviews. And you start to kind of notice things like, are you picking your nose or fluffing your hair? Or, I see people today on these Zoom meetings, they get distracted. And the next thing you know, you can tell they're looking at their phone. And like, hey,
wow.
Pay attention to it. Be where you are. You're on point. And it's easy for technology and things to distract us, but it's, I think the big thing is just be yourself, man, and then if you just be yourself, you don't have to kind of try to retrace your steps and go, well, who was I when I was talking to that guy? You know what I mean? It just be who you are, and because truth always comes out.
Yeah.
You can see truth, you can hear truth. I'm talking truth with the capital T. Like the real truth, it always comes out. So just be that. And, I find then you never have to retrace your steps.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Drew. If you want to stick around, we can keep chatting, but I know Dave's got to get going. He's got,
you guys have a good one.
All right.
See ya.
Thanks.
Yep. See you later. Thanks.
Yeah. So, and I know your charity is Toys for Tots, you told me. So your dad is like the president of that?
Yeah, he's been the president for probably about a decade now. And
in Chicago.
Have this huge parade in Chicago. There's like 80,000 motorcycles that's going from like the north side to the south side, or south side to the north side every year. It got canceled this year, unfortunately, because of COVID and all that, but it's usually a really big attraction and all that. So that's something I've always been around since I was a little kid. My parents were always bikers.
Okay.
But, they're a lot cooler than I am. Yeah.
Another question I was going to ask, we didn't have time to it because Dave interrupted us. No, he joined in. Of course, we wanted to talk. That was amazing. Talking. He's amazing.
Here's another.
Yes. Oh, there you go. I was going to ask him. I had so many more questions that I skipped over because I was like, well, he told me, he goes, well, probably like 20 minutes or 30 minutes if it's going well. I think he gave me like 40 minutes. I feel bad. So, but I was going to ask you.
He's great.
He's amazing. I was going to ask you about this Zen From Mars project. You told me that, so first of all, it's the singer from Kick Tracy. Mm-hmm. Who else is in it? Chips Enough?
Stephen Sherrill from Kick Tracy, Chips Enough from Enough's Enough, Kate Catalina, who is actually Chip's wife and a very, very talented piano player singer.
Okay.
And we got Bryn Ahrens from the band Flip, and Mike Heller from Fear Factory and Raven and Lucid.
So explain to me, you said there's going to be 2 versions of the album coming out with different remastering. Is that because they couldn't agree on how to do it, or what was the story there?
Well, the thing all started off with all these instrumental demos I did while I was in Bang Tango. And I intended a lot of them to be Bang Tango songs.
Okay.
But at that point, it's like they were just more concerned with playing shows and all that instead of like recording new material and everything. So I just randomly shot Stephen Sherrill from Kick Tracy an email, much like I did Vin from Sponge. I'd never met him before this year. I just found an email and sent him an email with the track, and he did it. We got the band. The same thing with Stephen Sherrill. And that was about 5-6 years ago. And sent him a couple tunes, and he was like, dude, I'm all over this. And then we ended up with I think 12 or 13 songs. And man, that was such a learning experience, because that thing it started off as like my baby, then it turned into me and Steven's baby. And on my behalf, and with the rest of the guys in the band, I always wanted to make sure everybody had their say. Like, everybody has, say where it should go and dictate where it should sound musically and all that. But there's so many moving parts. And really, when it came down to it, to be perfectly truthful, it was between me, Steven, and Mike. And me and Mike shared more of the same vision instead of Steven. Which, and both visions were great. They're awesome. I totally got it. And I was always the guy in the middle. I never said this out loud before. So this is, well, for whoever wants to know about Zen From Mars, I guess this would be good for him.
Yeah.
But and so Steven he ended up doing his version of the album, and that got finished about a year ago.
Okay.
And then and me and Mike, we hired a different mixer because Richard Easterling mixed that version. Richard did an incredible job. He's a wonderful mixer. And but me and Mike were like, let's get a different sound, more of like the way that we're hoping to get. And so we hired Lessa Lamert, who's also mixing the Lucid stuff. And we're just about done with that too. I think we're just got to get 2 more tracks going, and then that's finished.
Okay.
Finally, after all this time, it's like the most highly anticipated album that nobody ever cared about.
Oh, I'm excited. I liked Kick Tracy. I like Bang Tango. I'll
send you some of the tracks.
Yeah, for sure.
I think you'll get a kick
yeah,
out of it.
No, I
it's
think
like,
it'll
it's very ethereal. It's like heavy metal Bowie.
Well, yeah. When do you think that will come out? Do you have a
probably 2026?
Okay, well
but,
that's
realistically probably. I'm hoping by the summertime.
Okay.
I mean, right now I think what it comes down to is just artwork and sequencing. And I think Steven's already got his sequencing worked out, track listing and all that and everything. We're gonna have a lot of it's gonna be the same tunes, but different track listing. Like we're gonna leave a couple songs off of one version, and Steven will have a couple more versions on his. And I'll send you I'll send you the tracks though, man.
Very cool. So we got that album, and then the Rockstar Hitman book is out December 18th, so people can get it a week before Christmas, right? Probably pre-order it now,
absolutely, right? December 18th, and you can pre-order it right now on Barnes & Noble. You could get the hardcover, the paperback, and the ebook, and you can also pre-order it on Amazon as a Kindle.
Okay.
And there will be a paperback on Amazon. It's just that they don't allow pre-orders for paperback for whatever reason, so I'll turn that live when we get closer to the release date and everything. And it'll be available worldwide and all that and everything. And I know everybody's going to ask, hey, you guys doing autographed copies? No. Because there's so many logistics involved with that. I mean, it's and also me and Dave spoke. It's like we we're going to be doing a lot of convention appearances for like the
Oh.
Dwellers and all that and everything. And,
Okay.
and you think it'd be a good way to get people to come out and see us and
There you
get
go.
the book signed that way.
Yeah, I know he's doing, so Ellefson, he's got his no cover albums out now. His Ellefson,
It's great.
yeah,
It's such a great covers album.
the Ellefson Coffee is out. I think he's autographing bags of that. And then your guys' movie Dwellers will be out soon, and the band Lucid's record will be out soon, and also a new Megadeth. So a lot of stuff coming out in the works for both of you.
Oh, yeah.
Very
As
cool.
long as this COVID stuff gets wrapped up, it's looking like 2021 is going to be ridiculous in a different sense than this year.
Yeah, it'll be busy for sure. A lot of promotions. So very cool. Well, is there anything else? Did I miss anything? I feel like that's a lot of stuff to.
Oh man. I should definitely check out Her Name is Krista. And I got another movie I acted in that's coming out too from the same director writer of Her Name is Krista called Brimstone Incorporated. That's coming out in I think Valentine's Day, and it's like a horror movie anthology.
Okay.
That's gonna.
Where do you shoot these movies? In Chicago or?
Actually, those were in Ohio. Actually, for some reason, I keep on getting drawn to Ohio. Chuck Mosley lived in Ohio.
Okay.
These movies were shot in Ohio. I shot Dwellers in Ohio.
Oh.
So for some reason, I keep on getting drawn to Ohio.
Interesting. All right. Well, very cool. Well, thank you for doing this. Thanks to David. Tell him thank you from me. I think I said thank you. I hope I said thank you, but very grateful for both of you to come on and for you to help setting this up as well. So appreciate it.
My pleasure, man. Let's do it again soon.
Yeah. Keep in touch.
Whatever you want.
Absolutely. All right. Sounds good, man. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Chuck.
See ya.
So great to talk to you.
Bye-bye. So that was David Ellefson and Drew Fortier. The book is called Star Hitman. It's available on December 18th everywhere. Look for the band Lucid's new album coming out soon. Look for a new Megadeth album. The new movie, the horror movie found footage thing is called Dwellers. That should be coming out as well. Zen From Mars is going to be the album from Drew. And Ellefson Coffee Company, autographed coffee bags. You can get those on Ellefson's website, David Ellefson's website. Ellefson's solo album, No Cover. That's a collection of cover songs. That's out now. You can listen to it on Spotify for free. Lots of cool stuff to check out. Make sure you follow Drew and Dave on social media to keep up with all this stuff. You can follow me on there as well. And if you like this episode, you can let me know by sharing it on your Instagram or Facebook. You can write me an iTunes review or leave a nice comment on YouTube. Also, if you enjoyed this episode, check out some of my past interviews. I've had some great guests like Blasco from Ozzy and Rob Zombie's band, Wiley Arnett from Sacred Reich, Rachel Bolan from Skid Row, Don Jameson from That Metal Show, Jason McMaster, singer Dangerous Toys. He sings on Dave's new record, and many, many more. So thank you all for listening. Thanks so much to Dave and Drew for coming on. It really was like a dream come true for me. So just remember, shoot for the moon.